Brian Baldinger is joining us here on 95.7 The Game. Happy New Year, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Damon. Ray, it's good to be with you guys. It's been a little while, but I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and so I'm ready. I'm ready for this kickoff Sunday here after what we saw last night.
I heard you're at one of the more interesting games on the entire opening week slate, and we'll get to that in just a second. But obviously, for everyone listening to us, the day begins in Chicago right at 10 a.m. And, we were talking to Courtney Cronin, who covers the Bears for ESPN, and I said, we basically have two teams that have an inexperienced question marks surrounding him quarterback playing behind question marks surrounding offensive lines with defenses that should carry the season for sort of both franchises. Which team am I talking about? It's kind of both of them. The one true advantage that the 49ers have, I think, is Kyle Shanahan's experience over Matt Eberflus's first time out ever as a head coach. And that almost alone is enough for me to think the Niners carry this day.
Well, I like Matt Eberflus, and I like his coaching staff. I think what Luke Getsy's doing offensively is really, really bright, and you could tell that they've worked really hard in the preseason just watching some of their games and how they've executed. I mean, it looks completely different than Matt Nagy showed. But look, I mean, the Bears don't have Trent Williams. They don't have Deebo Samuel. They don't have Nick Bosa. They don't have, on and on and on. I mean, the 49ers have 5 or 6 of the highest paid players at their position in the league. So, I mean, they've got great players that are expected to play at great levels that, can swing the balance of just about any game. There is some inexperience in the offensive line, but every team has to go through that. Chiefs started 2 rookies last year. Didn't seem to affect them very much. You try to draft well and develop players, and, you got to play these guys sometimes. Like Alex Mack couldn't play forever. So, you got to put a new guy in there, and you got to draft a guy. Aaron Banks, he's a second-round pick. Like, let's go. You sat for a year. You see how it works. You watch Lake and Tomlinson do it every single day. Like, go do it. It's time to go play. Step up. I mean, not everybody can put an all-pro at every single position.
How, based on what you've seen from that line, how do you think it plays out early? I mean, I don't know if you can make an assessment about how it'll look like in December, but what do you think it's going to look like early? And by that, I mean, how well will they pass block? How well will they run block? What are the things looks like they can do? What are the things that it looks like they can't?
Ray, it's hard to answer the question. It's a question you have to ask. It's just hard to know when it's going to click. And sometimes it just clicks for a moment and you kind of feel it and see it, and then it doesn't. It's going to be inconsistent because they haven't played a lot. And so there's a fine dance between the quarterback and his line. There's a fine dance between the fleet of running backs that they're going to put out there and the line. We haven't seen Elijah Mitchell this summer. So there's kind of a balance that you have to find. And the only way to find it is to play and to play through it. So everybody wishes it could look like Buffalo did on their opening drive. But that's really not the norm, what they looked like last night. That's pretty rare. And in any year, that's pretty rare how they performed last night on just about every phase of the game. But I think, it's going to take the month of September, I believe, Ray, before we start to figure out how good they can be and what it's going to look like and how good the running game could be. They might hit a run here or there, against the Bears. I'm sure they will. But, to do it consistently where you can really count on it week in, week out, I think it's going to take the month of September.
When I was watching the Buffalo game last night, I just kept on thinking to myself, this is exactly what Kyle Shanahan wants out of his quarterback and his defense. And if you can get quarterback play that mirrors what Josh Allen does, like that's why they went out and they drafted Trey Lance, because the promise of having a guy like that, I think, became more interesting than having just the certainty that Garoppolo can get the job done, but will never have that level of promise. Now, that's asking an awful lot for Trey Lance to live up to, because Josh Allen really is, like, he's in a class all by himself. He's got the size of Cam Newton. He's got the arm strength of John Elway. He's got the, no biscuit, if you don't risk it, kind of wiring of Brett Favre. Like, he is He's a monster. He's an absolute monster. And when you have a player like that at quarterback, it just allows you to survive mistakes like 3 first-half turnovers, which is normally enough to bury anyone. It almost made the Bills more powerful because they weren't punting.
It was actually all 3 of those turnovers you're talking about were in the second quarter. And, you talk about a total team effort. I mean, the Rams put up a total of 3 points with those 3 turnovers. So it was all phases. I mean, they hit Matt Stafford 15 times last night. I mean, the 49ers would take that right now.
Yeah, 27 pressures on 41 passes. I mean, come on, it was insane.
Yeah, it was unbelievable, and it was everybody. It was the young guys, Boogie Basham and Greg Rousseau. It was Von Miller. It was Jordan Phillips. It was everybody. Everybody could AJS Epinesa. Everybody contributed, and that's kind of like you love that. You love to see that kind of contribution. Everybody ate. But, going back to Josh Allen, I don't know how many times I watched it today, but I watched it a bunch, Damon. He got everybody lined up on a couple of occasions. I mean, he's telling Stephon Diggs where to go and what formation to get into. They have certain plays that they love in short yardage situations, the touchdown to Gabriel Davis, classic 3rd and 1 play action. They got the Rams to bite, but they ran that play against the Saints last year, and they got the same result. But just watching Josh Allen literally cut and carve the Rams up every way that you can, whether it's just short darts, whether it's rollouts on the move, on the run, and then in the fourth quarter saying, the hell with it, man. I'm just going to take these guys on and run right over Ernest Jones and
stiff-arming guys. He's stiff-arming guys.
Yeah, stiff-arming Nick Scott to the ground. I mean, he just took the game over. All phase, you just see the talent. I mean, he threw up. On the touchdown run from the 4-yard line, Damon, I mean, he made about as hard a throw as you could possibly make and somehow pulled it back into his body and then darted to the right and out-jumped Bobby Wagner for a touchdown. I mean, that level of talent, to your point, Jimmy Garoppolo can't make that play. Most quarterbacks can't. Maybe Trey Lance will get there with that type, but you're going to need that type of athletic ability to make a play like that. And you're right. Everybody that drafts a guy that has a lot of grooming to go to, they're just going to point to Josh Allen like this is what we hope we get, and you just don't know. But you got to play. You got to play him, and you got to let him play, and you got to let him make mistakes. I could pull out Josh Allen's first preseason game against Cincinnati, and it was just dreadful. Everything was dreadful, and you're going, why is he even out there? Like he's not ready to play, and here he is 4 years later.
When you looked at last night's game, did you have sort of this mental fight between, man, Buffalo's good, and man, the Rams are bad? Or do you automatically err toward the offensive side when you're seeing a game like that, where even a mistake-prone offense can still put up 31 and still convert 90% of their third down conversions? And, I mean, is your sort of inbred bias toward good offense as opposed to bad defense, or do you try to hit the ball down the middle?
I did it different, Ray, when I watched it. I was around Buffalo and Rochester this summer. I saw how they worked, and then they played in preseason, and the Rams didn't. And to me, it was just a classic case of one team played and got a lot of their jitters and a lot of their they got their stuff out. They were ready to play. And the Rams decided, and it's just a coaching decision and a philosophy. And, in Los Angeles, they decided not to play any of their guys. And so they looked like it. They had very little timing, whereas the Buffalo, they had nothing but timing. And they just played at a faster speed than the Rams did. And I think that's a function of one team saying, okay, I know there's a risk to put these guys out here, but we're going to play our guys. And it paid off.
So the 49ers are going to be opening without George Kittle from the way that it looks. He didn't practice at all this week. He's got a groin. That's something that you want to let rest. You don't want to be risking George Kittle in a week one game that you're probably set up to win even without him. And all due respect to Chicago, it does look like the 49ers should be the favorite on paper, conceptually, when you really think about it. But George Kittle missing matters. It really does. He is as big a part of that team's run game as any tight end could claim to be, and we all know how good of a receiver of the ball he is, too. When you look at how the Bears could actually pull off the upset, I'm guessing maybe a certain player or two not being there is part of those reasons. How big of an impact do you think George Kittle has on this game if he can't go?
Well, there's only, 2 or 3 tight ends in the league that can block like him. But more than just that, it's just the way that him and Kyle, Juszczyk, like how they kind of do things in tandem together. I mean, they're excellent together in blocking the edges. And so they're not, Charlie Warner, you put anybody out there, Ross Dwelly, they're not George. So it can make a difference, but be honest with you, if you think that losing George Kittle makes this game closer, then you're not where you need to be. They should be able to overcome the loss of George Kittle in this game. I'd be surprised if he plays. You just can't afford to have anything linger into second week. So you're just better off. He's going to be disappointed. I'm sure he wants to play. I'm sure he's getting acupuncture right now and who knows what else. But, he's lying in, some salted water somewhere trying to take some inflammation out. But, you just got to get him ready for the season. He makes such a difference. But you really honestly got to just go the next guy up at every single position right now. And you just got to coach them all up and get them all ready to play. And understanding that there is a drop-off. The other guys behind him can't block as well as he can. But, you just got to go with the next guy.
Excluding the game you're doing, what is the game you would run across a freeway to watch on Sunday, and what is the game you would run across the freeway to avoid?
Well, there's so many, Ray. Honestly, if you look at this Raider-Charger matchup, and that's how Week 18 ended last year, with an overtime win by the Raiders, knocking the Chargers out of the playoffs. That was a death match. I'd love to see that one. I would love to see Pittsburgh going into Cincinnati. And if Pittsburgh's offensive line looks as bad as they did in the preseason, or somehow they get better, I think Green Bay, Minnesota is fascinating. And Sunday night, forget it. I think I would take my chances across, the 405 or the 101 at rush hour to go see that one.
Yeah, Buccaneers and Cowboys would be a great way to wrap up a Sunday night. I do think watching Aaron Rodgers trying to live in a post-Davante Adams world is going to be fascinating. And what Davante Adams does to the Raiders offense, that game's got tilt written all over it. That could be pinball if the Chargers defense that they tried to build doesn't actually get built early on here. You are sitting right in the middle of another just fascinating game. Chiefs and Cardinals. It's a 125 game on CBS for those who are going to be watching at home. And, Baldy, you got, as decorated and respected a young quarterback in Patrick Mahomes as possible, and Kyler Murray, who's got all sorts of stripes for a young player, but still is fighting that uphill battle of perception and not doing enough homework. And obviously the wrinkle in his contract about study time didn't do him any favors. That was a little bit embarrassing. He's going to be without his best target for the first 8 weeks because of suspension for DeAndre Hopkins. So are you giving the Cardinals a puncher's chance against the Chiefs? And if you're not, do you think it's a team that comes around in the second half of the season?
I think Kansas City is one of the 4 best teams in the league. They got so fast on defense. This trade of Tyreek Hill, while it might hurt some of the explosiveness of the offense, it just made the team better. The guys that they've added defensively all can play. They got 9 rookies in that team. 6 of them are going to play on Sunday for sure. And most of them on defense, and they're all going to contribute. I trust Patrick Mahomes as much as I trust Josh Allen as any other quarterback in this league to just throw it to the open receiver. He doesn't care what the name of the back of the jersey is. The guy's just the ultimate competitor. Kansas City's just a better team in every capacity right now. And while Kyler Murray might, throw a home run ball to Marquise Hollywood Brown and get behind the defense, I'm sure there'll be some wrinkles that Cliff has ready for this game that the Chiefs might not have seen or prepared for. Chiefs are just a better all-around team. Their offense line is amongst, if not the best in football. I think Kansas City goes in there and puts it up pretty big on the Cardinals.
Yeah, unless there's 11 Buda Bakers out there, they could have trouble slowing down what is still going to be a premier passing attack. What do you think Clyde Edwards-Helaire looks like in a? Are the Chiefs about to run the ball a little bit more?
They could. They certainly have the capability. Andy, it's not what Andy Reid likes to do, and so I don't expect them to lean heavily on it until they get a lead in the fourth quarter, and then they'll run it a lot. And all of a sudden that run-pass ratio will kind of tighten up a little bit. But he believes in throwing the ball coming out of the tunnel. It tires out the defense more. He'll throw a ton of formations at Arizona. They've got a real problem right now at cornerback. They've lost a bunch. They may end up starting Trayvon Mullen, who they just picked up from the bus stop on Tuesday from the Raiders. So, I mean, they've got some holes out there. I'm sure Andy Reid wants to go, test them real early with this new receiving core that he's got.
And then Baldy, the entire Week 1 slate wraps up dramatically with all you got Russell Wilson and a new team going back to the old stomping grounds of the Seattle Seahawks. That is going to make for a little bit of an interesting, awkward wrinkle for fans. I know Pete Carroll's saying, I trust my 12s to come and compete. I think they do got to give Russ his moment of respect. And then we're playing football, and that's not how football works. So, of course, they're going to be booing Russell Wilson and making noise while he's out there. But maybe my favorite stat going into Week 1 is that Geno Smith has 4 more NFL wins in his career than Russell Wilson has Pro Bowl appearances. Russell Wilson's been in 9 Pro Bowls. Geno Smith has won 13 games. So I think Pete Carroll and the Seahawks are about to be living in a new world.
Yeah, I do too. Look, they tried to give that job to Drew Lock, and he was just so bad against the Cowboys in the final preseason game. He threw 3 interceptions, and they just couldn't give him the job. And so, Geno Smith he's a capable backup quarterback. That's what he is. You can try to hide him in a run-based offense and rebuilt offensive line. You can do all that stuff. He's not going to pull Russell Wilson, rabbits out of his hat the way he did for a decade. I was in Denver twice this summer. Damon, I saw the end of every practice with Russell. It started with red zone drills with his receiving core for 45 straight minutes every day. Like, he's going to finish his drives in the end zone. They're not kicking field goals. And so he's just the ultimate, general out there, and just how to do the whole thing, how to lead, how to play quarterback, how to get the team to rally around you. He did it at North Carolina State. He did it at Wisconsin. He did it at Seattle. He's doing it now.
Why does Seattle doubt him so much? Because there's a story about all the sour grapes and that they tried to move on and they tried to trade him to the Browns the year the Browns had the number 1 pick that became Baker Mayfield. And it feels like, as Russell and his team, Team Wilson said, it was like a slow-moving divorce. Why? He seems like a Boy Scout. And like you just described, he's a consummate leader.
Yeah. They're going to rue the day that they made this decision, I think. Pete Carroll, John Schneider, the entire group there in Seattle. Most teams struggle for a lifetime. I mean, you go through the list of teams to try to find Russell Wilson for a stretch. And if they get him, they never let him out of their building. And he's just one of those guys. And people can say, well, he's not quite the same runner. Or I don't know if he is or not. I know that he can still play at an extremely high level. The only time he ever missed games was last year, so I'm not saying he's in decline. He missed 3 games with a bad hand. He played through every other injury he ever had. I don't know about those stories, Damon. I try to stay away from reading them because I'm not saying the journalism isn't fair, but they seem to have a slant one way or the other. I think Russell wanted to go someplace where he could throw the ball more and have more of his type of philosophy of what Brady's doing. Brady threw it 717 times last year. Like, you got to throw it to win it in Russell's mind. And I think he wanted to be in an offense where he could do that more.
It's so good to hear from you on a Friday. If we're talking to Brian Baldinger on a Friday, that means some football's happening this weekend. And indeed it is.
Yes, sir.
Great to catch up with you, Brian. Looking forward to our conversations throughout the year. It's great to have you back on the team here at 95.7 The Game. And let's enjoy the party, man. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be a great ride. Got off to a good start. And I think, even though last night's game was a blowout, I think every fan base can say to themselves, This is what we strive to be. Like, you always need, that rabbit that's out in front that everybody's chasing. In Buffalo, they're that rabbit right now, and everybody's trying to play at that level right now.
Hey, we were saying just yesterday, like, everyone in the world's on the Bills to, win the whole thing. So it is our duty to fade the Buffalo Bills. I'm re-questioning that, like today, immediately. They did look every bit of their preseason hype, but we're not going to overreact. It's just one week.
No.
We got a long way to go. Baldy, thanks so much, pal.
Yep. You bet, guys.
You're the man. Thank you so much. Brian Baldinger. That's the voice of football right there. To me, nothing sounds more like football than Brian Baldinger, except maybe this.
Maximum
There had to be one today, Ray. You knew that.
I've decided to just ignore it.
Oh, is that, you think that's going to cool me down on?
No, I don't. There's no. You're going to press that like a typewriter. I've just given up.
I'll say this. I'm glad to have finally beaten you.